G'day everybody. Welcome back to Paddlecast, Quarantine Edition. I am very excited to share today's episode with you folks because it's with a paddler who is not just a great storyteller, he has great stories, period. This man has lived a fascinating life in the ocean. He has helped pioneer and popularize probably half a dozen different ocean sports, including stand-up paddling and these days foiling. But he also has this uncanny ability to turn any story into a comedy. Even if it's about almost drowning while surfing 40-foot waves, even if it's about almost getting killed by angry locals when surfing the wrong spot, even if it's about having a trance-like, out-of-body experience while paddling 24 hours straight from one Hawaiian island to another alongside Laird Hamilton. I'm talking about, of course, the great Dave Kalama. It's always a thrill catching up with Dave because not only is he very entertaining and very insightful, he's very thoughtful. He's not just a paddle master, he's not just a foil master, he's a bit of a Zen master, Dave. There's one particular monologue towards the end of the show, you won't miss it folks, it would not seem out of place, written in scripture, on the sides of a guru's temple, deep in the jungle in ancient India. It's very wise, it's very profound, and I was very happy that Dave chose to share some of his philosophical outlooks on life with us here on the show. So I think you'll well and truly agree that today's extended edition of Paddlecast is worth it. We go way past the hour mark. It's a long one today, folks, but well and truly worth it. I was very entertained chatting with Dave. I think you will be too. Before we get into it, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody that's already joined Club SUP Racer. It's my new page on Patreon where you can pledge a few bucks a week or a month and support directly the creative work I do here. It means a lot to me. It keeps all of this going. It's also very motivating. Every time I see a new patron sign up, I get this shot of energy. It's a real buzz. So thank you to everyone that's already signed up. I really appreciate it. Even if you haven't signed up, even if now's not the right time for you to sign up, I appreciate everyone that listens to Paddlecast, whether you're just listening or sharing or commenting. It all means a lot to me. And you guys in the community are the reason I do it. I love this community, so thank you very much. I do want to give a quick shout out to one particular Club SUP Racer member each day during this intro, the patron saints of SUP Racer. And today's patron saint of SUP Racer is Kristen Thomas from Southern California. An easy one because she was the very first member of Club SUP Racer. But more than that, she was one of the first supporters of SUP Racer almost a decade ago. Kristen has given me so much priceless support, encouragement, and advice over the years. I really appreciate it. And it means a lot coming from Kristen because she's a real pillar of the community. An incredible paddler in her own right. She won a lot of medals at the ICF Worlds last year. She's also helped run the SUP Industry Association for many years, just a real beacon of light in the SUP community in Southern California and well beyond. So Kristen, thank you for not only joining Club SUP Racer and supporting me over the years, but thank you for everything you do for our sport. We appreciate it. Anyway, folks, without further ado, here he is, the Zen master from Maui himself, Dave Kalama.
God, that lag got me like tripping out. I can't watch the camera.
How you doing over there, mate?
Yeah, good, Chris. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to chat. You just got off the water, yeah?
I did. Well, actually, I just got done.
Did you get off the water, or did
Edward
Paddle Hands get off the water? Who's the real Dave?
You know what? I've been taking a little heat as I've come in through the harbor for delivering pizzas. So I've decided to take the paddles off while I'm riding, clip them to my little safety bat belt that I carry with me. So in the very latest, you'll see me with just normal hands as opposed to pizza boxes.
What was the, obviously the motivation for this is obvious. You love foiling, but what was your inspiration?
My inspiration was the love of foiling that I have and wanting to share it and make it accessible to literally everyone, and kind of even more motivated to share it with surfers because I feel that they have this sort of relationship with the ocean. The experience of riding a wave is so dynamic and just inspiring, right? And the feeling that I get while riding out on the open ocean on the wind swells is such a cool feeling that I want as many people as I can get to experience that and enjoy what I'm enjoying out there, because it is it's unbelievable. It's the stuff that you used to draw on your math book on the cover of riding the ocean, and it was like science fiction when I was growing up and I was a kid. And every time I'm out there and I'm riding the ocean. I'm not riding a wave breaking near shore. I'm out in deep blue water riding the ocean. And that concept is so in another galaxy far, far away that I want to try and bring it back to Earth and share it with as many people as I possibly can.
So this is a very childlike, kind of primitive form of play. Like this is just a pure joy of playing in the ocean.
It really is. It really is, because while I want to share it with as many people as I can, I know the reality is it's very difficult, and there's probably very few people that are ever going to get motivated enough to get over the hump and experience this, because it is really challenging. It reminds me a lot of my early days of windsurfing, where I thought, there's no way, this isn't possible. But you'd see some 70-year-old dude or some girl go flying by you and go, well, okay, if they can do it, then I can do it. And you just keep plugging away, and eventually you figure it out. And this sort of reminds me of that, in the sense that there's times where, like yesterday, I got smashed. My confidence just got hammered. I'd been getting up within a minute to 5 minutes at the most, right? And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to time myself today and see how quickly I can get up. 15 minutes later, I'm about 1.5 miles offshore. I'm in deep blue water. I'm starting to really question what this is really doing for me, other than putting me right smack in the middle of the dinner plate for whatever shark comes along. And it's amazing, the mental experience this is giving me on the highest of levels and the lowest of levels. And I think it's that abuse that keeps me coming back, honestly. The great days, you come in, you're smiling, you think, you're a hero, and that's easy, right? But the days that you get hammered and you question everything, and is this worth it, and can I do it, and your confidence is squashed, those are the days that keep me coming back more than the good days, because I just refuse to have my ass kicked. And there's days where I do get my ass kicked.
You love the pain?
I kind of do. And it's sick in a sense, but it's
does it make the good days
really
that
motivating,
much more satisfying?
Absolutely. And that's what adds to the intensity. I wrote on IG the other day that, look, what I'm doing is no different than stand-up foiling in a technique sense and in so many aspects, but the intensity level of it is off the scale, and that makes it feel so much more exciting and intense and dynamic and all these things going on. And my focus is, well, I was thinking about it today. So when I go on a stand-up foil, there's times I'll actually take a call or I'll make a phone call and I can talk and foil at the same time. With this, I wouldn't even think about it, because I don't want to make a mistake, because I don't want to be out there in blue water not knowing how long it's going to take me again to get back up. So it really requires an intense amount of focus, which I love that feeling. There's not many things in life that you come across almost on a daily basis for me now that require that level of intensity and that level of focus, which means you are in the moment. You're not thinking about all this COVID stuff. You're not worrying about how the bills are going to get paid in a month or two. You are in the moment, and man, is that purifying.
How did you actually make these hand paddles? What's going on here? And what version are you up to?
I started with the web gloves last year at Hood River, and they worked. They got me up and going. But as I went along, I discovered these hand paddles that were made for swimmers, as a training device, and they were bigger than the web gloves. So I was like, well, let me try those and see what they're all about. And they worked better. And so I started ordering every single hand paddle I could online to figure out which one was best. And then pretty soon I realized, well, these work good, but what if I made them even bigger? And so I just started fabricating my own, and they did work better. And so that's kind of been a real game changer. You don't need the massive ones for just catching waves and regular foiling, regular wave riding, but out in the ocean where every little thing helps you catch those wind swells, and they can be very difficult to catch at times. Every little thing can make the difference, and there's such a fine line between getting up and not getting up that everything matters. Now, Hood River, not so much. The swells are so much tighter and steeper and easier to catch. It's not going to be as critical, but in a place like Maliko where the swells aren't as steep and the troughs aren't as deep, it becomes more critical.
Have you gotten many funny looks?
Yeah. So the other day I was out there and this jet ski drove up to me, and I could tell he was trying to assess, should I ask this guy if he needs help? Because normally people aren't out in the middle of the ocean on a 6-something with 2 little discs attached to their hand. And I could see him doing the math, like, this guy shouldn't be out here. Do I ask him for help? And then as he drove closer, and I could see him doing the math, he's like, no, I don't think he needs help, but I should check on him anyway because this ain't right. And so he did. He asked if I was okay, and asked, do I need any help? And then he I think realized who I was and that I had been doing this. And he asked if he could take some photos. And I was like, no, I'm good, man. Just let me be. I'm struggling out here. All I want to do is get up and get to the harbor. But it was kind of a funny interaction. And yeah, I'm glad the guy checked on me. I would much rather have someone come check on me because you never know who might come swimming by in the next second or two.
Have you tried doing this just with your hands? I saw your son
Yes,
manage to pull off a prone foil start on Maliko. Austin.
Yeah.
Have you got his level of cardio?
He's Kai, Austin, Zane, all those guys probably don't need anything to make this happen with the right board, right? And but I do. I definitely do. So
how does it compare to regular foiling? Is it a different feeling? Is it more satisfying?
It is in a sense because it's harder. You know, and not that regular foiling isn't an incredible sensation, but this just takes it up another notch. That level of intensity I was talking about, and it becomes addicting. And like I say, that intensity draws you into the moment, and that is really an addictive feeling.
Do you think you'd still be in the water this much if you hadn't discovered foiling? Has this kind of rekindled your love of the ocean? Or would you always be out there with
absolutely has rekindled my love. Now, I still would be paddling my one man. I probably would still be going down on my stand-up unlimited. I still really enjoy those things. But, you know, if I'm being honest, they don't command that level of addiction that I have for foiling right now. There was a time they did, but that was a decade or two ago. You know, sort of the flavor of the month has me all in right now. And I'm new boards, new hand paddles, just constantly trying to make it easier and more accessible. And hopefully at some point I'll be able to get some sucker to come out and join me.
Have you talked with
Chris,
Jimmy?
You look like you're ready to come try.
I think I need to work out a little more before I start paddling into swells. We've actually been, all I've been doing the last 4 weeks during this isolation time, because we're still allowed to surf here. So all I've been doing is foil surfing on the prone. And I'm absolutely
Really?
I'm absolutely hooked.
It's
ridiculous.
It's insane, right?
Oh,
It's ridiculous.
I can see what like when you get over that hump and that first long, smooth glide you get, something clicks in your brain. You're like, I can see what all the fuss is about. Why all these guys don't paddle their race boards anymore.
Yeah, when the fear subsides to where it's not constantly at the forefront, and now you can focus on the technique and start to enjoy the experience, that's when it's like just la la land.
It's pretty special feeling. It's like that magic carpet ride that you had dreamed about as a kid, like you were saying. But what I can't do, and what I've tried to do a couple of times, is downwind foiling. I went out with the guys from One here on a SUP foil, and I thought this will be easy. I can do it in the waves. Like, how hard can it be? I can downwind and I can foil surf. Put the two and two together. It's simple arithmetic. So anyway, in the first 30 seconds, I got straight up. And I was like, that's it. I'm going for the next 20 Ks. I'm not even going to drop. 5 seconds later, I went over the handlebars, just full of shame. And I never got up again the rest of the session. And every time I tried, I would get a bit more tired. And after 5 minutes, I was so exhausted that I limped in after 4 kilometers. And that 4 kilometers took me an hour. It was like the world's slowest downwinder on a 5-foot race board. And I kind of went in with my tail between my legs saying, how the hell do you do this? So you got any tips?
Yeah. I laugh because I've had that same conversation. I'm one of the best downwinders in the world. I can foil on the wave as good as anybody. Slam dunk. I got this. And that turned into one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my life. And that's the start of my foiling downwind career. So I share that with you.
Well, it's encouraging that even Dave
But yeah, I
Kalama
do have
struggled
tips.
once. Yeah?
I do have tips. To not get too specific, but it is a pretty specific situation that's either going to determine whether you get it or not. Generally, you don't go for the bump that you think you should. You wait for the one behind it. It's almost always steeper. And sometimes it's even 2 bumps behind the one that you think.
So last wave of the set.
Are going to have last wave or the second to last wave. And then the other thing is once you do get up, you do not want to go straight ahead. Unless there's trough down below you, then yes, you can go straight ahead and you'll keep accelerating. But more than half the time, that's not the case. It's just enough speed to get you up, that trough flattens out, or you run into the bump in front of you, which means as soon as you get up, 90 degrees to the left or to the right, and start pumping and looking for something that's going to draw you down, right? And then once you find that, you're kind of off and running, and then it's just a matter of staying as close as you can to the crest of the swell and not allowing yourself to go down into the trough unless you're sure you're going to get enough speed to get up and over what's in front of you.
So basically, you're just zigzagging down Malika.
Absolutely, way more zigzagging than I would on an unlimited stand-up. Unless the conditions are really good and your speed, like there's times where I can average, say, 17 to 20 miles per hour. So that would be 11 to 12 Ks per hour.
Wait, say that again?
It'd be more.
You went the wrong way.
I'm going the wrong way. I'm thinking kilograms.
Just get on the metric system,
I went the wrong way.
Come on. You've had
So
enough time.
it'd be 43, no, 40, 38, 40 Ks.
Go back to miles.
Is that right?
Go back to miles.
20 miles an hour?
20 miles an hour, it's 32 kilometers.
32 kilometers.
1.6.
Okay. So I can average
That's fast.
Nearly 32 kilometers per hour for a half mile. Now, in that scenario, I can just jump right over everything that's in front of me and keep gaining speed as I come down the other side. But that isn't possible the entire way. There's times where you have to bail out 90 degrees to the right, wait for something to set up, and then you can jump into it again and take off. But as a general rule of thumb, 2 to 3 times as much zigzagging going on as with a canoe or a stand-up board.
How is it at the gorge? Is it a whole different experience than Malika?
Oh God, the gorge is like cheating. It is so fun there. You don't have to worry about anything coming up and eating you. The bumps are tighter and easier to catch. It's fresh water. I don't know. There's just so many things about it. The shore is always right there, so you don't get this feeling you're out in the middle of nowhere. Um, I don't know. It's an ideal spot to learn how to do this. It's an ideal spot for so many things, but yeah, prone downwinding. I think Hood River is going to be just perfect.
Have you got anything here on Instagram? I'm looking for a shot of the gorge. I know Austin's got some. This could be it.
Yeah, those are some gorge shots, kind of from a while ago. Actually, I did put up a prone from, it was probably around maybe that time, maybe not, on Instagram.
What's your son doing? What's Austin doing that just blows your mind on a daily basis? Just everything
he's
does.
Really getting into this winging thing. You know, he's doing pretty damn good with the wing.
Have you tried the wing?
He's been laying. Oh yeah,
that was one of our
into the wing.
That was one of our Club SUP Racer members' questions for today. Was, have you tried the wingding, the wing foiling? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do it a lot, but I definitely do it, and every time I go, I have a blast with it. Especially when I can incorporate it with riding a wave. I've done it down in Hood River, or not Hood River, excuse me, Nomotu on Fiji, and just had so much fun riding waves and doing downwinders down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really enjoy it. I do really enjoy it.
It seems to be taking over Maui.
But given a choice, given a choice to go downwind, I'm always going to take, either stand up or proning.
Yeah.
But that's not to say the winging isn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's catching on over here. Thanks, Tony Webster, Club SUP Racer, for that question. Another question that came through on the club was, how do you actually learn to foil if you don't live near the ocean? One of the boys in Finland, they've got 1,000 lakes over there, thousands of lakes. And they were wondering, they bought a foil, they want to try and get into it when the ice melts, I guess. What's their first steps? Behind a boat? With a wing? What's the easiest?
Behind a boat? Well, the easiest is the e-foil. If you can get your hand on an e-foil, that's your easiest entry. If you can't, because they're expensive or they're hard to come by, behind a boat or a jet ski. And when you go, it's not wakeboarding. Don't hit it, take it up to 18 miles an hour and see what happens. You'll kill yourself.
Just launch.
It's full on baby steps. You start out at 5 miles an hour and just pop it up for a second, put it down. 6 miles an hour, pop it up for a second, put it down, and just keep practicing. Get it up, put it down, get it up, put it down. And while your natural inclination is going to be to want to fly the whole time, what tends to happen is you can fly, but you're not learning how to control it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can go up and down on command, you've essentially learned how to control it. So the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can then move to the next phase, which is leveling off, staying up out of the water, but then now being able to trim it because you've got the use of your front foot and how to shift your weight around.
You've really got to check your ego, huh? And just take those baby steps you were talking about.
You don't have to. Foiling will do it for you.
So you might as well do it.
But I would highly recommend that you do. Oh, you're going to get humbled.
To me, when I was learning how to foil, it was like when I tried to learn a language. And the only way I ever learnt that language was I realized I'm going to have to look stupid for a while and sound like an idiot. And that's the only way I'm going to get through this and get over that hump. And it was the same with the foil. I'm just going to have to accept that I'm going to look like a kook for a couple of weeks at least, and then I'll get over that hump.
Yeah. And that's what makes it really rewarding. You have to earn it. Nobody gets this for free, And there's levels to it. and I'm at the level of prone foiling on a downwinder that it kicks my ass half the time. But that's what I love about it, is because it's so challenging. And if I can figure out how to break through those little barriers, God, it's so rewarding because it was challenging, because I couldn't just show up and do it, you know? And I love that achievement, and I like setting goals and trying to break through, and it really motivates me. So yeah, start behind the boat, start slow, work your way up in as small of baby step increments as you possibly can, and you'll ultimately get to where you want to go faster the slower you go, because you'll be learning all those steps A to Z that you need to have if you want to be flying at Z.
All right. Good advice. Thanks, Yari Lane from Finland, for that question. Hope you can get it going over there, buddy. And another question that came through, and I was very curious about because I saw a few things popping up. Imagine's coming back, or it's back.
Imagine is coming back.
What's the story?
Yeah, so a gentleman that was involved with...
Where did it go?
It was a company that was owned by Neil Pride. Neil Pride fell under some questionable management, let's say, and Imagine was one of the casualties of that management. And so it went away for a while. A gentleman that was involved in the company but not in management has acquired it back from Neil Pride, brought the original team back together, and we're going to try and revive it and get it up and running. And I'm actually really stoked because the guy who now owns it has really let Adam and myself, the gentleman that does a lot of the day-to-day, even back in the day, really grab a hold of the steering wheel and have a lot of say in it and what it's going to become. And so it's exciting to be involved in such an authentic way and really kind of steer this and make it what we always thought it could be. Because it was really frustrating when it went away. We were growing.
Yeah, it was going well, right?
Every other company was going down, but we were going up. And the fact that we got our legs taken out from under us was quite frustrating. And so now to have this second go at it and have the freedom and really good ownership really makes me excited about it. So super stoked to and we're taking small steps, and obviously with the COVID being what it is and the situation that we're all in, it's going to pump the brakes on it for a little bit, but we'll get there. Fortunately, we're not overextended with boards and stock and inventory. But yeah, we'll get there. And like I say, I truly am excited about it. And that's going to draw me back into stand-up. And I have been moving that way, riding waves again and spending, actually, for every 5 foil sessions I have, I'm probably doing 1 stand-up session now.
Those are pretty good odds.
A lot more than I was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually am getting back on the stand-up board and having a lot of fun. Me and a couple buddies have gotten back to the outer reefs on our stand-ups this year, and just really was like, God, how could we ever stop doing this? It's so fun. So yeah, it's kind of cool to get back on the stand-up board and spend some quality time on it.
Exciting to hear. Imagine's back. Thanks to Mick Bertram on the club for throwing that question out there. Hey, speaking of the Outer Banks, what happened? Can you just recount the tale many years ago when you were pioneering the more deserted areas of surfing in Hawaii and you had a gun pulled on you? Do you know what I'm talking about?
All right.
Can you tell that story?
I might, but I want to know where you got that from.
You told me at the gorge after a few beers one year.
So I'm going to have to kick my own ass.
Has that one been locked in the vault? You don't have to tell it.
You know what it was?
You can give us the PC version.
I didn't get a gun pulled on me, fortunately. But that doesn't mean I didn't think I was going to die. It was a case It was a case of mistaken identity. We come to find out later.
So it's a comedy story, really.
It kind of is. It's funny now. At the time, it's probably the most scared I've ever been in my whole existence in Hawaii, to have a boatload of angry locals all looking at me as if I had punched their mom in the face. And the way they were talking and the actions and the body language they were exhibiting at the time, I thought, this might be it. This might be how I go out. And that would have been on my surfboard out at a break with 8 angry local guys jumping off a boat and drowning me. But like I say, it was a case of mistaken identity, because the day prior, a prominent surf artist from Maui had been over there the day before, without permission, without following protocol, and dropped in on a bunch of kids, told people to F off, was just a real prick. And so we show up the next day, and these guys think it was us from the prior day. So while my 2 friends pointed at me as the reason we're here today, they drove right over to me and were about ready to unload their fury. And thank God the driver of the boat recognized me. I recognized him. He was a friend of my dad's. So at least we could go from DEFCON 5 back to 4 for a split second and talk and come to understand I'm not the guy they're looking for. But I tell you what, if that guy should be worried if he ever goes back there.
So
yeah, that was a scary experience.
What's it like in Hawaii these days? Because you've got a very proud surfing culture, and there's a lot of respect in the water. And if you break that respect, obviously you're in trouble. Is it still the same?
Yeah.
Has it become gentrified?
It is not. Yes, it has. It's not like it used to be. That level of respect and that established pecking order doesn't exist like it used to. Now, in certain places, let's say Makaha, it still exists. You step out of line and one of the uncles is going to tune you up. If one of the nephews or nieces doesn't do it before they do it, right? So there's places in Hawaii, you still follow that respect protocol. And if you give respect, you're going to get a lot back. But if you don't, you're going to have a bad day. Now, in a lot of places throughout Hawaii, it's so much mellower than it used to be. And if you show an ounce of respect and just friendliness, most people nowadays in the water just want to have a good time. They don't want any drama. And the vibe is actually really good, especially amongst the foilers and the foiling spots and the stand-ups and the standing spots. And then there's certain spots where it's kind of open to everybody. And while there was turmoil in the initial years, there seems to have everybody found kind of that equilibrium where we can coexist together fairly well.
Is anyone still paddling a race board in Maui? Between the wingdings and the foils and surfing, it seems like race boards have become a little forgotten. Is your 18-footer just gathering dust?
A what?
Those big, long, bulky things with tiny little foils on the bottom, this big.
I put my 18-footer out at the end of the driveway with a free sign on it, and it's been out there for a year now.
So you're not making a comeback to defend your, what was it, the 2010 Molokai title? You're not going for the decade book ending?
Not yet, but quite honestly, every time I go grab my foil stuff, my Unlimited is sitting right there on the rack. And I've been looking at it a little more intently lately. And I might take it out for a spin just for old time's sake and see what happens.
It's like an old flame you haven't seen for a few years.
It's kind of gonna be the new thing now here soon.
It'll come full circle.
It's been so long since it'll come full circle. But no, it's really fallen off the map. A lot of guys have moved to OC1s. A few guys to the foil, not that many, but some of the real hardcore stand-up guys are foiling now and doing foiling downwind. But just that whole community has really subsided and kind of gone by the wayside, which is it's kind of sad. But I must say the OC1 community is as strong as ever.
Yeah? Why is that? Why is
Still a lot of
outrigger,
paddling going on.
why is outrigger more appealing than SUP? Apart from the fact you just go faster.
I think it has a lot to do with the cultural and the community aspect. So much, I mean, while OC1 is very popular, it's a small segment of paddling. And the 6-man, the 2-man, 4-man, whatever it is, really the heart and soul of canoe paddling is a team sport. And that team dynamic where other members are trusting you, relying on you, really adds a whole nother component that stand-up doesn't have, and it bleeds over into the cultural aspect of it. And so while stand-up is an incredibly fun and has a social aspect to it, it's not at the same level that canoe paddling is.
I noticed you got a Kalama Camp shirt on there. Did I checked the mail this morning? My invite still wasn't there. Did it get lost in the mail?
You know how many emails go to the wrong spot. I'm sure it was just lost.
Sure, yeah, it's on its way.
in the digital sorting room.
All right, I'll keep my eye out. Is it still happening this year? Or is it on hold with everything that's going on?
No, as of right now, it is still on.
October? November?
The September camp is still on, but I'm nervous about that. November is still completely on, and obviously anything can happen. But and we'll adjust accordingly as we get closer. But even September, I feel pretty confident that if we keep moving in the direction that we're moving, and we don't have too much of a fallback because we open too soon, I think we'll get there, and I think it'll be okay. But like everybody else, you got to keep an open mind, and you've got to be flexible and adjust on the fly.
Just for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about, Kalama Camp is basically Dave's fantasy camp where he hangs out on Fiji for a few weeks and invites a few people to paradise with him. It's actually a pretty cool deal. I was over there when we did the ISA Worlds, and you guys were there. It's like a full-featured, all-inclusive camp. You bring a bunch of very famous surfers and paddlers over with you. And it's a fantasy camp, right? You guys are in paradise.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it a fantasy camp. I call it the Waterman's Experience, meaning I really try and share what that waterman's lifestyle is like for a week. Stand-up, longboarding, downwinders if it's blowing, talking about technique, paddle technique, riding technique, downwind technique. I've got some of the best surfers in the world there, Tom Carroll, Colin McPhillips, both world champions in their own right. So the amount of information that people have accessible to them is incredible, including myself. I love hearing Tom's stories about Pipeline and the North Shore back in the day, and we try and have at least a few story time sessions with Dave and Tom next to the pool. So it's a lot of fun, and hopefully people learn a lot. And the quality of people and how great the island is now. The food, thanks to Pip, is just amazing. In fact, while I like to think people come for me, the reality is they keep coming back because Pip is the cook and the food is phenomenal. So there's a lot of really cool things about the whole deal that make it worth coming.
I think I would pay however much it is, and I know it's not cheap because you're in a pretty exclusive part of the world. I would pay just to hear Tommy Carroll's stories. That guy was my hero growing up.
He's worth it. He's absolutely worth it. It is so fun to get him going, and that's kind of my challenge throughout the week, is to kind of egg him on and get him going. He's a classic. Tommy is a classic. So fun to surf with and listen to his stories, and just such a wealth of knowledge.
What's the What's the basis? Tell us the story of Namotu, because it's a very, very special little island. It's basically like that island you imagined when you're a kid that you'd love to be stuck on.
It is. It's essentially a 5-acre island. So there's no cars. There is communication. They have Wi-Fi and they have a TV now. But back in the old days, you had a payphone and no TV. So you really did check out. And it does still retain some of that charm where you feel like you're there. You're completely there. But if you need to work and you need to do emails, you can. But the surf, the watercolor, the food, you can go fishing, left, right, foiling now, kiting, winging. Every afternoon at the bar on the beach, cold beers, talking shit about what you did throughout the day. It's just amazing. I'm ready to go to the airport right now and head down. I talked myself into it. No, I just love it. And the fact that people like Tommy and Colin and Rory, who's one of our other coaches, keep coming back year after year, I think really is just a testimony to what a special place it is. And the management has done such a good job at making it a really first-rate resort,
Do you ever have any spots even available, or does everyone just sign back up the day the previous year finishes?
No, I do have spots available. I have a very high return rate, so there's not a ton of spots, but there's always a few spots. And if you reach out and you let us know you're interested, we get you on the list. And when those spots do open up, we'll reach out and let you know. And if you can go, sign up. If not, we start moving down the list.
I'm sure you don't have any trouble filling it up in the end.
Typically not.
What's the?
It's fun. It's fun.
What's the culture like in Fiji? Are there many locals surfing, or is it just a fly in, fly out kind of thing? Because originally the story was right that each resort owned their surf break, and it was very controversial for a lot of years that you couldn't surf Cloud Break unless you were staying on Tavarua, which is the next island. You couldn't surf, I guess, the Namotu reefs unless you were staying on Namotu. And then the government opened it up about 15 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Now you're right, but now it's open. Cloud Break can get a bit crowded at times. Namotu much less so, but it still has some good quality surf. It's the people, to me, are what make it magical. There's places on Earth that are just as beautiful, and the surf might even be slightly better. They're harder to get to. They don't have that cultural aspect. And the people, the Fijian people are so genuinely authentic and happy and have so little and are willing to share. And they have aloha, they really do. And it comes across when you're on the island, and it's one of the reasons you come back is to experience that. They have their priorities so in line with what really is important in life, and smiling and joking and not getting too caught up in material nonsense. And it's just so refreshing. It's so like hitting that psychological reset button every time you go down there and you come back to the world, and you just feel like you got a little truer alignment and a little better balance to yourself.
Is it tough to leave that island? Have you ever missed your boat back?
Yes.
Your boat?
After a week, it's almost impossible to leave. Yeah. 2 weeks is hard. 3 weeks, you're like, home's okay, but Fiji's pretty cool. And then after about, say, a month and a half, you're a little bit, all right, maybe I'll go home, see a movie, sleep in my bed.
Do you ever get
something like that?
Have you ever gotten to the island fever point over there? Because it is a very, very small island. Or is it just too good?
Yeah. If I didn't go down there as much as I do, that would probably not happen. But I spend, on average, a month to 2 months out of the year down there. So I get to spend a lot of time, which fulfills that desire.
So you're there outside of the camps as well? You're just hanging out on the
Oh,
mochi?
yeah. I do some...
Did you tell me you're the official lifeguard?
I do some lifeguarding there on the island occasionally.
Quotation marks, or are you actually working?
Lifeguarding. And then I do some private coaching and guiding down there at other times. So, yeah, I love it. I love it down there. It's my favorite place in the world outside of Maui.
You've had some interesting clients over the years, and I know there's no way you can talk about them because they're higher profile people. But what's it like when, you know, like say like a high net worth individual, like someone that's very wealthy, comes into a culture that's very, you know, humble, like surfing and paddling, and just wants to learn that very raw thing. And you look at this guy and they're like, well, you've got everything in the world financially, but now, you know, you want to learn such a basic thing. Is that like a Zen-like experience?
Yes.
That's all you can say?
One of the reasons I get...
I know you're not allowed to talk about too much about this, but just in a general philosophical...
One of the reasons I get to keep coming back under those circumstances is because I try and operate under a really professional level.
Yeah,
so
I don't want any names or anything. I'm just curious about the philosophical side of, you know, when people come into the sport, when they're very successful in other areas, and then they want to just learn what we kind of take for granted because we grew up in the ocean. It's like different worlds colliding.
Well, one of the reasons that we love surfing is because it's so much fun and it's so purifying, and there's so many benefits and peripheral things that it has to offer, that it stands to reason no matter what your income level is, it's an attractive thing. And it offers so many great experiences to everyone. And so, yeah, everyone wants a taste of it, and everyone wants to learn about it and get better and enjoy what it has to offer.
Does it remind you when you see these kind of people come in, whether it's with you or anywhere else, and they get into surfing, does it remind you that, man, I've got life figured out. I picked the best pursuit all along? Because we get caught up and say, you know, I wish I had more money or whatever. And, you know, people get distracted by those things. But at the end of the day, we've got a pretty good lifestyle, I think.
Yes, I contemplate this all the time, Chris. I work a fair amount. I live a pretty simple lifestyle. I've been very blessed to do the things I do. Retirement is a word I will never know. But when I look back on the experiences and the lifestyle that even to this day I still continue to lead, that's worth more than any amount of money. And I've really given the matter some thought, like, what would I trade this for? What's that number I'd cash out and go, okay, I'll give you all my memories in my life for yours, right? And the number doesn't exist. I wouldn't trade the life I've lived and the experiences I have for nothing. I don't care how many zeros you put on it. I'm not changing nothing.
That's wise words right there.
Yeah.
We might have to leave it
Plus,
on that
if I had that much money, I'd probably just screw it up and make horrible investments and start getting stressed and, wow, why can't I just go surfing, you know?
If you did have unlimited money, though, would you get some genetic engineering to turn your hands into actual paddles? Would you go full Aquaman and get the webbing between the fingers?
No, because then that's one less thing I can work on and try and develop. It's fun to make these stupid hand paddles and try and figure out what makes it all go.
Is there another iteration of this?
That?
Just to go full circle back to the first topic, are you iterating still on these hand paddles and this idea of paddling into swells, or is it a simple thing to figure out?
Well, you know, like every aspect of surfing, I put way too much thought into it. And if you look at the hand paddles objectively, they work better than your hand, right? Would you go out stand-up paddling with just the shaft and no blade at the bottom of it? It would still work. You could put it in the water, pull back on it, and you'd move forward a little bit. But it wouldn't work as good as when you put the blade on the bottom of it, would it? So from purely a scientific, objective point of view, a paddle is better than no paddle, right? But the tradition and the herd mentality of surfing is so strong and so restrictive that hand paddles will probably never be allowed to be utilized in surfing, even though I can tell you absolutely, no doubt, 100%, they work better than your hand itself, right? And now people ask me, well, doesn't it hurt your shoulder? And I tell them, no, I have an automatic sensory machine built into them that allows me to turn down the amount of energy I exert when I use them. It's called my brain. I don't have to paddle really hard all the time. And in fact, what I've found is I can paddle way easier and still continue to move at what would be considered fast paddling when I'm hardly putting any effort into it because the paddles are so effective. And so, you know, if I'm looking at it objectively, the paddles are absolutely better. If I'm looking at it realistically, is surfing and traditional surfing going to allow the use of paddles to catch waves? Probably not. But if it could ever get over itself and have an open mind and try and advance, it would.
So for now, this is just your toy in the ocean. This is just a plaything.
Yeah, you know, Chris, one of the interesting things about getting older, and I feel like I'm just getting to that age where I really don't give a flying anything of what people think anymore. And that is so freeing and liberating that I don't have to be held by other people's perceptions and judgment, because while it seems funny, for a lot of people, it is a real thing that they operate by and they don't even realize it. And I don't have that fear of being judged anymore. You know, in fact, I try and have as little fear as I possibly can with everything I do. And that's a little bit reflected in my board design. I mean, when I first started making foil boards, they were so far out in left field that people kind of gave me that side eye, like, dude, you're losing it. What are you doing? Right? And I agree. It looks so damn different than what their eyes are used to seeing when you think surfing. But once you can set down all of those established sort of norms and really just address the design barriers for what they are without any preconceived notion of how to solve them, you can really start to get creative. And so having gone through that process, I really have tried to apply that to literally everything I do. And so hand paddles, boards, techniques, doesn't matter what it is anymore. I'm going to try it, and I could give a pound pile in the yard of what anybody thinks about it.
I think that's a wise lesson in life in general. I think everybody should strive to reach that point where they're not bound by the opinions of others. And I think there's a good quote
in the big wave riding thing. I've dealt with so many big waves that you would think, oh, fear's not going to be a problem for Dave, you know? And that's not true. I am a human being that has to deal with other people's thoughts and judgments and my own insecurities and fears like everyone else does. And that riding Piahi fear is a completely different fear of, let's say, public speaking, right? I mean, you want to get me to sweat, get a group of people together and tell me to go talk to them.
So
now we're talking fear.
Are you telling me 30-foot, 40-foot Piahi was worse than your TEDx talk? I mean, The TEDx talk was scarier than your 30-foot at Piahi?
TEDx was way scarier. The only thing I had going for me was the whole lead up to it. I didn't know what TED was or TEDx, so I thought it was just
it's just the biggest public speaking platform in the world. That's all.
Yeah, fortunately, I had no idea of that before. But the morning, I got there about an hour before I was supposed to, and I saw all the people and put makeup on and change your shirt and people running around with microphones and yelling at each other, and I'm like, holy, what the heck is this all about? This is intense, And then I started to get nervous, and I'm like, pump the brakes. You haven't cared to this point. Don't start caring now. Just go tell your story.
Well, the most ironic thing about this is that you were nervous about public speaking, yet your story was about almost dying while surfing.
Yeah, there is some irony there. But yeah, I mean, even it's funny now that I occasionally do a public speaking gig. I go through the same mental preparation as I do with hand paddles. I stopped caring what people are going to think. You be you is a quote I really like and buy into. And if that's not good enough, so be it, But me being me has gotten me where I'm at, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. So just keep being me and see what happens.
Well, I know a lot of people laughed at Kai when he first posted videos of foiling, and there was, it was mocked by a lot of people. And 3 years later, most of those people are trying to learn how to foil.
Well, case in point, speaking of Kai, is when he had the big carrot sticking off of his back, and he was hoping to use that, I think, as a source of wind power, right? Hey, I laughed. I thought it was funny. But that doesn't mean I didn't appreciate his experimentation and his willingness to try something new. I will always support that. Even if I think it's wrong, which I would hope would never inhibit somebody from doing something, I will always support experimentation and trying new things. And quite honestly, I've learned more from my failures and my mistakes than I have from my successes, because when something doesn't work out, it forces you to figure it out and progress, make it better, right? So those failures are just as important as anything to the process. And I've really come to accept that and sort of embrace it. And when I do have a failure, I try and change the perspective and go, okay, here's my opportunity to really figure this out and make it better.
There's that old quote from Gandhi, which I'm going to butcher completely, but it's basically along the lines of, first they'll laugh at you, then they'll ignore you, then they'll fight you, then you'll win. And I think in modern days, it's basically when everybody that laughed at you is now trying to learn what you were doing, then you've kind of won. So the less we think about what others are thinking of us, I think the better.
Yeah, I mean, look at the initial reaction to stand-up paddling, to bring it kind of full circle again. The first time Laird and I were out in the lineup, and people were like, whoa, that's cool. And then after an hour or two, and they saw how many waves we got, they were like, that's not as cool as I thought it was.
What?
And then guys with big boards coming out and destroying the lineup and going down that whole road, and all of a sudden, people looking at it and going, oh, man, get that out of here, and da-da-da, and all the resistance it saw initially. And then it blew up into one of the biggest water sports of all time. Kind of says something to how cool it is. It's fun. Just straight up, it's fun.
Hey, have you got a few more minutes to chat? We're coming up on the hour, and I know you've got your family over there to get back to, but I want to ask you a couple more things. We're breaking through the hour barrier here. It's brave new territory on Paddlecast. What was it like back in the day? What year did you actually start experimenting with stand-up paddling? You and Laird and the Maui boys, you basically pioneered it.
Um, well, like I always prerequisite all my little soliloquies about stand-up paddling, Laird and I did not invent it. All right,
You
we
popularized it.
definitely had some.
You
We
helped. You helped
popularized it
popularize it, I
exactly.
think is the correct.
We helped popularize it. That it had been done for literally decades before we came along. Um, but we were both riding for Oxbow. We were both riding 12-foot longboards a lot at that time.
12
And
foot
that time,
longboards in surfing or windsurfing or what?
surfing, just surfing,
Yeah.
you know. We were both sponsored by Oxbow, and we were doing a photo shoot with our longboards over at Maui, a spot on the south side. And our boards were big enough and the winds were offshore that after we'd kick out of a little wave, we'd just stand there and blow back out to the lineup. And after about 3 or 4 waves of this, I was like, hey, I got a couple canoe paddles in my truck because I just done a one-man run. And so I said, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I go run to the truck. I grab the paddles. I toss Laird one. And so rather than having to stand there and wait to blow back out, we could reach down with the canoe paddles, get ourselves back out quicker. And we did this, and we're laughing at each other because you're bent way over to try and reach the water. But hold on, we can catch waves with this. We get back out quicker. An hour's gone by and it seems like 5 minutes and we're still laughing and having a ball and knee-high surf seems fun. It's like, wow, this is kind of cool. And so the next day, Laird asked me who the local paddle builder, Malama, was. And so he went and had a couple paddles made for us that were head high, so we didn't have to bend over as much. And, bam, off and running. That was kind of our jumping off point into this whole thing.
Do you remember the year? How far back we go?
I want to say it was 95, summer of 94, 95, something like that.
So it goes way back.
It goes pretty far back. Laird almost exclusively did stand up from that point on. He kind of never looked back. I kind of wafted back and forth between longboarding and stand up for probably the next 6 to 8 years before I really committed to doing stand up most of the time.
Do you remember when it actually became a thing? Do you remember the first time someone did a race on a SUP? Because I'm thinking some of those early ocean races in Hawaii must have been the very first SUP races when they jump in the prone division of a Molokai or something.
I want to say it was one of the first. It used to be, I think, a Nash.
Oh, the old Nash Maliko
race. Yeah, the old Nash Maliko. And before it was even the Nash, I can't remember what it used to be called, but it was a paddleboard race. It was literally a Maliko paddleboard race.
It was the Molokai warm-up event, right?
Yeah. It was the same time and date it had been forever, just before the Molokai, and we started doing stand-up just on longboards, and they added the division, and by the next year, after having done that race and being motivated to figure these things out and make them a lot faster, we started creeping up and making bigger and bigger boards.
Do you remember the first board you ever used in an actual race? What it looked like? And how big it was?
I don't. I remember.
Or was it a race board or a round nose?
The first proper good downwinder we had was shaped by Jeff Timponi, and he shaped one for me and for Laird. Same dimension, same everything. Laird's board was about half an inch thicker. And Mark Raphorst built them for us.
The SIC founder.
Exactly. And then after, and that was sort of the template for 16 unlimited pulled, almost giant Waimea gun looking type boards. And so that was where we kind of started and just kept refining it from there.
Is that the one you used to paddle the length of Hawaii?
Yes, exactly.
How long did that take you?
Oh, I want to say we did it over the course of the week. And at the halfway point was Sunday on the weekend. And it happened to be the Molokai Hoi race. And I was paddling canoe a lot at that time. So we timed it so that I would be on Molokai and able to join my team to do the Molokai Hoi on Sunday. And after the race, I had to get on my bike and ride from Waikiki out to Mokuleia, the far end to the end, or to the end of the road. And that was one of the grumpiest moments I've ever had in that whole expedition. I was so over the whole thing. I was so tired from the race because I was exerting a lot more energy than at any other part, because I'm racing and my team's relying on me. So I really put a lot of effort into it. And then I had to jump on the bike and ride for, 35 miles or whatever it was, maybe 40. And man, I just remember when I was finally done, I want food. I want a beer. Get this stupid bike away from me. Don't talk to me. And they're like, so Dave, what do you think of the race or the travel so far? Are you having fun? But it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
Just step back a moment. What was the motivation for this? And what did you actually do? You rode and paddled literally the length of Hawaii, which is how many miles?
So essentially we started at South Point, the most southern point in Hawaii on the Big Island, and we rode our bikes and paddled our stand-up boards to the most northern point on the island of Kauai, so spanning the whole chain, and ride across the islands, paddle across the channels. And we did it over the course of a week, and I think the whole thing was like 450 miles, something to that effect.
And you went from Big Island to Kauai?
Yes. Big Island, paddle to Maui, paddle to Molokai, ride Molokai. One of the coolest days I had was we rode Maui from La Perouse over to like Honolulu Bay or Fleming's. Jumped in the water, paddled to the southeast corner, Kamalo. Got back on our bikes, and by that time it was sunset, and then we rode across Molokai in the dark, and that was probably one of the most spiritual experiences I've had here in Hawaii. There was hardly anyone on the road, and it was just pitch black, and you felt the mana of the island, or I was just scared. But either way, it was a really cool experience.
And what was that story from the last day when you wanted to give up? I don't know if you told this in your TED talk or at Carolina. I remember or over a few beers somewhere. But you were
no, that was a Molokai race where I wanted to give up.
No, the other one where you wanted to catch Laird on the last leg.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because that last leg is how many?
I don't know.
I'm going to try and measure this. From Oahu
basically
to
70 miles.
78 miles.
It was like 80
here.
miles from Nawiliwili Harbor to, we started at Haleiwa. Or actually, we started just north of Kaena Point. That's right. We drove from Haleiwa to just to the north of Kaena Point, so we were still in line with the island, and then jumped in the water. I believe it was like 10:30 at night, and instantly I got seasick. Not bad, but a bit. But and you're worried about sharks, obviously, at this point. But about 2 hours into it, you feel like poop. You got a touch of seasickness. You're tired. It's after midnight, and now I'm grouchy. I'm pissed off. I'm like, why are we doing this? There's no trade winds to help us. In fact, there's no wind at all, and occasionally there's a headwind. And I didn't think we were going to do it. I was just kind of going through the motions, thinking, all right, Laird's making the call. I'll play along until he calls this, because nobody paddles that channel without trade winds. And so the fact that we got in the water without any trade winds, I'm like, nobody does this. We'll call it in an hour or two, and we'll try again tomorrow. So we're a couple hours into it. I'm starting to get tired. I'm pissed off. I really don't care about the sharks anymore because I'm so irritated and I feel bad. I'm just grouchy. And it gets to about 2 in the morning, and we get a little rain, and then a little headwind, and then a little more, and a little more rain. And within about 20 minutes, it is absolutely pouring rain. We're paddling in about a 25, 30 knot headwind. And I'm thinking, finally, we can be done, you know? But I'm not going to say uncle. Laird's got to make the call. And after about 20 minutes of this just torrential middle of the night, you can't see anything, I realize if he hasn't called it yet, he's not going to call it, which means I'm going to have to do this the whole way. Oh my God. And so I came to this realization, oh, I better pace myself. I might be in trouble here if this is what it's going to be like. And it was like that for maybe another 20 minutes, and the wind started to die, the rain started to stop, and pretty soon the clouds opened back up. And, it's 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And I was like, wow, this is really happening. We were planning on it taking 14 to 16 hours to get across. It ended up taking about, I want to say it was 22 and a half to 23 hours. At 14 hours, I started telling my boat, the GPS is broken. You keep telling me we're going the right way, but I can't see Kauai. So the damn thing is broken. Find out where that island is, because if we're headed back to Oahu, I'm killing somebody. Finally, at 16 hours into the paddle, we finally see Kauai as this little micro speck on the horizon. And part of me is like, finally, there it is. And the other part of me is like, oh my God, look how far we still have to go. So
But you made it.
I made it, and I had a couple of experiences out there that have changed me at the deepest point of my core, because I have so much more inside of me than I ever thought I did. I wish I could record the conversations I had with myself at that sort of 15 to 19 hour period that were as low as I could go, and at times made me feel invincible, and right on back down to, why are you doing this? You're an idiot. Why are you trying to stay up with Laird? Laird's not human. You're a human. Come to your senses. And Laird at the time was getting way out ahead of me. He was at least a mile ahead of me, So now I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm creating this barrier of, it's time to go into survival mode, or is it time to see if you can catch him? Catching him seems really dumb and potentially trip ending if you exert so much energy that you can't keep going. Survival mode seems like the smart play here, so that you do get there. You've spent so much time to this point, don't fail now. And so I sort of settled back a little bit and went with the smart move. And then I thought, oh, what the heck, just bring it up a little bit. And then I started focusing on my breathing, and that allowed me to bring it up a little more. And I slowly increased my breathing intensity and my paddle intensity over the course of the next, say, 15, 20 minutes. And I literally worked myself into this, just transformative, hypnotic, weird state where I was frothing, literally frothing, spit coming out with every breath. My eyes were probably going in different directions. My body felt possessed. But what I noticed was, in the middle of all this intensity, I was catching up. And so I was like, it's working. Keep breathing. And I kept this level of breathing that was, I literally felt like I was possessed, like I was almost an out-of-body experience. I came to a level that was so far beyond anything I'd ever experienced, and it felt like breathing was the key to the whole thing. So I just kept breathing at this just unbelievable, intense pace, and I ended up catching up to him. And I remember coming up within probably 5 yards of him, and I could tell he heard me, but he thought he must be hearing things because there's no way what I just heard was Dave, right? And I'm still in this, and so I get a little bit closer, and the splashing of the wake off the nose of my board is more apparent, and I'm almost on the tail of his board, and so he finally does turn around, and I see him kind of do the double take, and it's like, oh, how did you get there? You know? But he's so tired at the time, he doesn't want to take time to analyze or ask any questions. He's just trying to keep his rhythm. And I'm just elated. I caught back up to him. Yes! Yes! And then it dawns on me, now what do I do? I've expended so much energy. We're still 3 or 4 hours out. Now what am I going to do? And I think he saw that in my eyes with a quick glance. He brought it down one gear, let me settle into a pace that he basically pulled me for the rest of the time we were out there. But going through that trance made me realize I had so much more in me. And I know everyone does. I'm not unique in any way. But I tapped into something that I think most people go through their lives without tapping into. And so it gave me this perspective that no matter how bad things get, you have more, you can do it. But you don't just like decide, oh, I'm going to do it now. It doesn't happen like that. You have to slowly build into it. And breathing has to be the key that unlocks that doorway to possibility.
Wow. So you're going to sign up for the Yukon River Quest next year with me and Jimmy?
Wow, you're good. You were good. You just let me walk right into that, now over the edge. I got him trapped now after that story. You're good.
We'll let you paddle your OC1.
Unfortunately, Chris, my spot has already been taken. So I'll be first alternate.
Dave.
Should you have a need.
I'll tell you what. I've already done it once. I'll give you my spot.
Nope, I wouldn't do that to you. Although I take that as such a profound gesture of friendship that I couldn't accept that, and I do appreciate it.
All right, well maybe 2022 we'll take the quick blade canoe back up there.
I couldn't feel good about myself taking that experience and that pain and suffering away from you.
There's a lot of pain and suffering in that event. That's I think what you were talking about in a different way. I kind of got that trance state out there, maybe purely from the sleep deprivation, if nothing else. I certainly wasn't paddling as fast as you and Laird, but just that time on the water and that endless physical exertion. And being in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you guys were in the middle of a channel, which is literally the middle of nowhere. We were in the middle of a deserted part of Canada. And I think it's special. It's kind of interesting to go through those experiences.
It is special, and I want to share my 2 cents. I highly recommend anybody listening, find that experience and challenge yourself. Now, of course, prepare for it. Don't just show up and go, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. You could seriously injure yourself, or paddle the Chattajack or the event in Canada or whatever it might be. But I highly recommend at least once in your life, do something that is marathon-esque. And what you will find, and I think probably the best advice I could give anybody outside of the preparation that information is readily available to anybody, but what a lot of people won't tell you is it becomes a challenge of management in terms of fluids, calories, and even more so that enough people don't talk about, rashes, stretching. Those 2 things I discovered were the most important things that nobody told me about. stretching, and rash management. You take care of those two things, anything is possible. As soon as you lose the battle to rashes and muscle fatigue, or muscle tightness, I should say, the war is over.
So take it a nice tub of Vaseline when you do a big paddle.
Vaseline, and in your training regimen, come up with a stretching routine that you can fit in a 3 to 5 second stretch here, a 5 to 10 second stretch there. Come up with something, because it will pay dividends, not in the first half of the race, but the closer you get to the finish line, the more the dividends start to pay when you manage those things properly in the earlier parts of the race.
Well, mate, I can see it's getting dark over there, quite literally. I appreciate you sticking around for an extended episode, and I'd love to chat all day and all night about your stories. It's fascinating, and it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, mate. So I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Always a joy to talk to you, Chris. Anytime. I'm glad I could share some experiences and hopefully provide some entertainment for your listeners.
Absolutely. Keep doing those things that people might laugh at now, because you're showing us what we're all going to be doing in 2 or 3 years.
Hey, I'm laughing too. Trust me. I know how goofy it looks, but I'm having fun doing it, and that's all that matters.
It looks goofy, but it does look incredibly fun.
Oh, the experience of riding the ocean with nothing in your hands and just your equipment and your decisions that make it all come together is incredible.
All right. Dave, Zen, Kalama, on that note, we're getting okay. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks a lot for chatting, mate. All right. Let's do it again soon,
Chris,
buddy.
Take care.
You too, mate.
All
Cheers.
Right. See ya. Aloha.
That was a fun one. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to have to get Dave back on the show soon, because he's always a laugh, always entertaining, and always very, very insightful. That got kind of deep there. I like it. Anyway, folks, thank you for listening. If you would like to support these daily podcasts and all the creative work that SUP Racer does, from the world rankings to the stories to all the updates and insights and analysis that I just love sharing with you guys in the community, I'd love you to consider joining Club SUP Racer. It's a new page on Patreon where you can pledge a couple of bucks a week or a month and directly support what I do here. It would mean a lot to me, and you can find all the details at supracer.com/club. There's probably a link below wherever you're listening. I'm plastering the links everywhere. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it, but I'm going to say it again because it really does mean a lot to me, and we're going to try and have some fun with this club. There's a few members-only perks. One of them, which I think is one of the cooler ones, is you actually get early access to every episode. So you're the first to hear all of these Paddlecast episodes. All the Club SUP Racer members actually heard this episode yesterday. Anyway, if you'd like that and some of the other cool members-only bribes for joining Club SUP Racer, get onto supracer.com/club. We're going to leave it there, folks. It's very, very late here in Australia. I'll see you for another episode tomorrow. Thanks for listening.